Basically, I face the same thing now that Michelle Rainey, Greg Williams, and Mark Emery face, and that's 10-year mandatory minimum to life sentence in a U.S. prison for marijuana charges. My charges are for medical marijuana, and I got them in California where medical marijuana is supposed to be legal. The U.S. government is not respecting its own citizens in the United States, and they're waging war on their own citizens. And I'll tell you something, we do not want Canadian citizens winding up in United States prison, because I research United States prisons now because for my own case, for my own freedom, I have to show Canada that virtually I face the death penalty if I'm sent back to United States prison. And that is the truth, because now in California there's a judge, a district court judge, that's come forward condemning United States prisons for their deplorable health care. An average of one person in prison dies a week now in California prisons for medical neglect. It is insane. There's basically outbreaks of hepatitis C, outbreaks of AIDS. Nothing is being done to help people there. People are dying now in United States prisons. And for women, Michelle Rainey and I should never be returned to a United States prison ever, because I'll tell you what, over 50% of the guards watching women are men, okay? And women are being raped nowadays in United States prisons. This is dark stuff. It's not stuff that I enjoy researching, but it's stuff that needs to be brought to the surface. People need to know women are being raped. There's nothing being done about this. This is Dark Ages bullshit, and it has to come to an end.
I mean, for 9 years, he's been doing this quite openly, and they've known about it, the local authorities, and haven't done anything about it. We found out that the Health Canada medical marijuana access people, when contacted by various people who've got exemptions under the legislation to possess marijuana, have asked, how do we get it? How do we get seeds? They've said, go to the internet. And so many people who in that situation contacted Mark Emery.
The United States government, the Drug Enforcement Administration have been targeting Mark Emery for his political activism for at least 2 years. It is obvious to me, and I think should be to any Canadian, that this is not a criminal prosecution. This is a political persecution. The DEA is conducting activity on Canadian soil, undercover stings on Canadian soil, and going after political activists and leaders of registered political parties here in British Columbia. Anybody that cares about the independence of Canada and the right to free speech and political dissent should be outraged by this prosecution. If the Canadian justice system wants to deal with him, and it appears it did not, because this activity has been going on for a decade with no interference, that's fine, but we should not become tools and puppets of the U.S. drug war.
The partnership, again, between United States and Canadian law enforcement was significant and led to the successful conclusion. It's because of that aggressive law enforcement and intelligence efforts that Mark Emery's overwhelming arrogance and abuse of the rule of law will no longer be on display or tolerated.
There's a Jane Armstrong.
Jane Armstrong's right here. Mark, Jane, Mark. Smile. He's going to take your picture, I think.
Well, I want to appeal to Canadians to point out that this prosecution is very politically motivated. It's because not only have I never kept any money for myself, I own no cars, no assets, no homes, no property, boats, offshore bank accounts. I gave away every dime I ever earned. And it comes to millions and millions of dollars that I gave to every major organization in the world and in North America to legalize marijuana. I helped hundreds of people who were in jail with lawyers, with bail. I paid for the Supreme Court case, Clay Malmo Levine. I gave, even Larry Campbell, when he announced the legalization of marijuana was something he believed in, he did so at a conference I paid for, Beyond Prohibition. I gave money to the New Democratic Party. I gave money to presidential candidates in the United States. I gave money to the BC Marijuana Party, extensive amounts of money. I contributed that money to peaceful democratic liberation movements all over the world. And I'm proud to say so in an era where people use violence and bombs and armies and wars to make their point, whether it's the United States or Osama bin Laden. I have always maintained that we can only accomplish our ends through peaceful change, and my money helped bring that about.
The tentacles of the Mark Emery criminal enterprise reached throughout North America to include all 50 states.
Now, did you have any inkling that these undercover officers were the ones who kept coming back were undercover officers?
Eventually I had an understanding that they were, because they started asking me about buying marijuana. And I thought that was very odd, because I never have sold marijuana. It's not something I've done. And they were asking me for this on cell phones and in emails, and I actually gave the one woman who turns out to be an officer of the DEA a lecture about, don't be asking to buy marijuana. It's very risky, it's dangerous, you shouldn't be doing that. It's foolish for you to want to do that, and I discourage you from either asking me and even doing such an absurd thing. So at that point, you know, people typically don't come up to me and say, where can I get 10 pounds of marijuana? So eventually I realized perhaps they are finalizing an investigation.
I didn't realize how extensive this was and how terrifying it was until I was read the warrant while I was being fingerprinted and handcuffed and foot shackled.
I recognize some of the previous raids. Still doing it after all these years, the swines. That comes across pretty serious right away. But this is, and that's why I said I wasn't certain where I was going to be going after I was put in that squad car. So, no, it's frightening business for sure. And I was surprised, of course, that anyone would even care to that degree.
I'm just about to speak later on that day to Maritimers United for medical marijuana, and I went into the one restaurant in Lawrencetown and went in, and it was kind of an unusual thing because there were a few customers in there at lunch hour, and they kind of quickly got cleared out, and I think somebody came in and talked to the waitress who, when I asked for some food, got kind of irritated and nervous, so something odd was about. But anyway, as I left the restaurant after finishing my meal, went to my car. A car was parked behind me. I turned to say hello, and 2 cop officers were getting out of a car. 3 other cars came and surrounded me with flashing lights, and next thing you know, I had at least 8 or 9 police officers handcuffing me, and the words I remember, of course, Mark Emery, you're wanted on a warrant for extradition to the United States of America.
The execution of the search warrant, as I understand it, was by Vancouver City Police. There may have been drug enforcement officers present as observers. The difference was in some of the investigation of the offense involved undercover officers who were DEA officers coming into Vancouver and purchasing seeds at the store. And so it was basically a U.S. sting operation, but in conjunction with the Vancouver Police, in the sense that the seeds were handed off to the Vancouver Police. So evidence of what went on will come from both American and Canadian witnesses.
Mark Emery was distributing seeds. I mean, Mark Emery is from Emery Direct. I mean, he makes no qualms about telling the world that his seed business helps to legalize marijuana. He's a philanthropist. The whole purpose of his seed business was to distribute funds throughout the world for legalization, to help with whatever legal fees people have needed, or to endorse whatever political party, whether it be the U.S. Marijuana Party or the BC Marijuana Party, or whether to help drug addicts get off crack cocaine from his Iboga therapy house. I mean, our Canadian government has known what Mr. Emery has been doing for over a decade, and has taken his tax dollars of $12,000 per month willingly, knowingly, that he has sold seeds through the internet and through his magazine, Cannabis Culture.
So it was something that we faced every day that we were ever here. You know, it's trying to change the law in cannabis. It's not an easy thing, as it turns out. Canadians would like the law to be changed. Politicians here don't want to change it, and then will further go and allow a foreign country to come in here and try to squash the movement. I think that's pretty un-Canadian, as far as I'm concerned.